Let's try instead with Tristan in Kansas. Tristan in Kansas, you are on the air.
Hey, can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can.
Okay, well, you kind of pulled a Trump there, David, because I'm actually in Kansas City, Missouri, but
Okay.
it's okay.
It all gets truncated, so all I could see was Kansas.
Yeah. So, going to the situation in Ukraine,
Yes.
would you say there's a lot of quote unquote Western hysteria about this? Because I'm just nonstop getting bombarded with news articles and videos about it and everything. But people people I talk to in Ukraine, they're saying it's being hysterilized, or I don't know the right word for it.
Yeah, I understand. Well, I think there's a couple different things going on. First of all, a lot of the discussion around Russia-Ukraine is related to Russia's role in the world as one of the three major superpowers, along with China and the US. So a ton of the discussion, if there's a population that's about to be invaded, that population being Ukrainians, one of the priorities should be, what's going to happen to Ukrainians? What do Ukrainians want? What is this? So, for example, Israel is helping to evacuate Jews from Ukraine under the belief that if Russia were to invade, it's probably not particularly good for Jews. That's about the people. And that's being lost significantly because the context is Putin versus Biden, and will China take this as an opportunity to be aggressive with Taiwan or whatever the case may be? It makes sense because these are big geopolitical players. But I do think that there's kind of a missing element, which is the Ukrainian people. That's a part of it. The second part is I do think that there's significant politicization here. Individuals looking to, there are left and right wingers that are increasingly aligning with authoritarian regimes like Putin. There's an opportunity to call Biden weak no matter what he does. And so there's a lot of political opportunism as well.
Of course. Do you think there's an actual possibility of World War III, like a strong possibility in your eyes, or do you think that's hyperbolic? Do you think that's just a bunch
hyperbolic?
Of
I think that's hyperbolic. And I know that there's, NATO allies are increasingly sort of preparing and putting troops at the ready. But I really don't think this is something that, even if Russia were to invade Ukraine, I would bet against this going anywhere else into any kind of World War scenario in the immediate. 5 years from now, in a totally different situation, maybe. But I think that that's hyperbolic.
Yeah, it's really reminding me a lot of, I get really annoyed when people compare Putin to Hitler, but I will say that it does mirror the beginnings of World War II a lot, where Hitler would annex his, the territories
the immediate surroundings. Yeah. Here's the difference, though. Here's the difference. The world is completely different than it was in the World War II era. And as a result, both of different geopolitics, technology, and by technology, I mean both weapons and surveillance technology. I don't think that just because there's something about it that is similar, it means the outcome is going to be the same. These could be famous last words, but I think we have to consider the context and the world in which this is happening.
Yeah, exactly. That was my idea, but I just keep getting bombarded with articles and fear mongering, so it's been giving me anxiety. This helps a lot. I have friends in Europe I talk to about this too, so it's good to have different perspectives and not just be stuck in like little bubbles. But thank you so much, David.
My pleasure. Thanks for the call. Very important topic for sure. Wow, folks, the phone lines are packed today, and we're going to be speaking to a variety of different people. Why don't we go next to George in Dublin? George, you were on the air. What's on your mind today?
Hi, can you hear me?
I can.
Okay, great. So my question is actually about Ukraine as well, and it's given that the U.S. and NATO have violated their promise from the 90s to not expand eastwards. Can we really, and given that the U.S. has military bases all over the world,
yes,
can we really say that Putin is the provocateur in this situation? Because it seems to me that, from a structural perspective, NATO has been provoking Russia for decades by expanding eastwards.
I don't buy it. No, I don't buy it. I mean, there's at a certain point, we have to be able to say, wait, hold on a second. We can do any kind of theorizing and analysis we want. We can have the conversation you're having about NATO, but you would have to believe that someone is sort of forcing Putin to mass troops at the border, and it just seems like a tough bridge for me to cross. No, I don't think so. That's a little bit too far. I'm fine with structural analysis for sure, but no, I don't. That's not striking me as something that makes sense to me.
I mean, I think I certainly agree that Putin is a dishonest actor,
Okay.
but I don't really think any serious person could disagree with that. But it just seems to me that, from the perspective of the Russian presidents, what good is NATO's word or the US's word when they said we're not going to expand eastwards,
Sure.
and then 14 Eastern countries from the former Eastern Bloc get to join NATO.
But, I think that the counter still is, if Putin is massing troops at the border with Ukraine, he may be planning to invade Ukraine, and it makes sense to game out that possibility, and I say this as someone who doesn't want any conflict whatsoever.
Yeah, sure, definitely. By the way, I'm sure you heard, but Justice Breyer is about to retire, so
Yes,
Biden may have a chance to appoint someone in the Supreme Court.
indeed.
So yeah, thanks for taking my call.
All right, my pleasure. Thank you so much for the call. Very much appreciate that. One of our sponsors is Blinkist, who's been supporting the David Pakman Show longer than any other sponsor. Blinkist is the app that lets you listen to or read an entire nonfiction book in just 15 minutes. Blinkist is the way to absorb those books you can't make time for. Blinkist takes top nonfiction titles, pulls out the book's key takeaways and insights, and gives it to you in the form of a text or audio explainer that you can consume in 15 minutes. With Blinkist, now you actually do have time to learn about all the things you've been wanting to tackle. On the Blinkist app, I just listened to This Is Your Mind on Plants by the great Michael Pollan. Super interesting, the history of caffeine and so many other things. Blinkist has you covered on podcasts too. Blinkist takes long episodes of popular podcasts and distills them into audio you can listen to in 15 minutes. With Blinkist, you can become knowledgeable about so many different things. You can have conversations with people about more topics. Blinkist makes you more well-rounded. Try Blinkist for free and get 25% off a subscription. Go to Blinkist.com/Pacman. The link is down below.